So Donald Trump has just won the US presidential election, and I thought I would make a video just quickly reacting to it from an antinatalist perspective. Now, someone might be thinking, what do you have to make a video about? And I agree it's somewhat limited, but I think there are some things to note on. And someone might be thinking, well, you're not an American. Why are you talking about American politics? I get that. I'm not going to be as informed about this as many other people. But as we all know, when America sneezes, the world catches a cold. So this is an election that will impact many people outside of America, not perhaps in every single way, but it's something that people outside of America are still going to be interested in. Now, it's hard to know what the future holds, obviously, and it's misguided at the least to make strong predictions, especially for me, who's a layman when it comes to politics. But in this video, I basically wanted to give a heads up, basically, of things to look out for in a Trump presidency for antinatalists, child-free people, and anyone who's sort of skeptical of procreation. So let's start with who Donald Trump surrounds himself with. So it's no surprise that the conservative side of the political spectrum tends to be more pro-natalist. After all, conservatives are the traditional supporters of family values. But Trump is surrounded by people who will be very familiar to antinatalists, and people whom aren't a fan of antinatalists. Trump's Vice President J.D. Vance has consistently used the term child-free or childless as almost a slur, and has even spoken about people who don't have children in what's approaching conspiratorial terms. In this clip I'm about to play, he implies that people without children are miserable and have gained positions of power and want to control the general populace in some way to make them miserable as well.
Look, what I was basically saying is that we're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children. And how does it make any sense that we've turned our country over to people who don't really have a direct stake in it? I just wanted to ask that question and propose that maybe if we want a healthy ruling class in this country, we should invest more, we should vote more, we should support more people who actually have kids, because those are the people who ultimately have a more direct stake in the future of this country.
He also implies that people who don't have children are less committed to the future, and he provides no evidence for this. He may have the view that people who don't have children have less of a stake in the future of the country, but to prove that his belief is actually correct and based in reality, he needs to provide evidence for that. Because at the moment, he's just expressing how he perceives the situation, but if he were in a different context, he may perceive it in a different way. For example, in India, the culture around this, at least for many people, is that they perceive leaders who don't have children as being more committed to the future of the country because they've decided not to have children, and as a result they can put more of their effort and time into ensuring the positive future of the country. If you want to learn more about this, you can check out my video on whether Gandhi was an antinatalist. I'll link it in the description. Trump has also been strongly supported by Elon Musk, who's attended his rallies and strongly supported him on X, promoting him to his millions of followers. Musk will of course be benefited in some way by Trump's election to the position of president, and whilst it's hard to make predictions about exactly how, his projects of spreading life to other planets like Mars and his strong pro-natalist beliefs will likely get boosted. Or to put it another way, I'd be very surprised if these pursuits of Elon Musk's were dampened over a Trump presidency. And again, Elon Musk has consistently demonized antinatalists and made them out to be this sort of enemy of the people. I've already covered this in another video, so I'll include a clip here. If you want to see the full video on Russia's crackdown on child-free ideologies, it is linked in the description. Here are some examples of Elon Musk completely unnecessarily setting up a war and conflict framing between people who have children and people who even gently suggest or discuss the idea that we should maybe ethically evaluate the decision to have a child in the age of climate change. And that's not even full-fledged antinatalism. He's using terms like Holocaust when no one, especially the people that he is specifically addressing, are advocating for killing anyone, just simply not creating new people. And to see how extreme his rhetoric is, let's take a look at this video of Kamala Harris that Elon Musk uses the term Holocaust in reference to.
You know, I've heard young leaders talk with me about a term they've coined called climate anxiety. right? Which is fear of the future and the unknown, of whether it makes sense for you to even think about having children, whether it makes sense for you to think about aspiring to buy a home, because what will this climate be?
Like I said, even lightly suggesting that we may want to ethically evaluate the choice to have a child in the age of climate change. These terms he's using are obviously trying to stoke conflict and division and rile people up. And these are just 3 examples. There are many more. Now, given this increase in the number of people who are getting into positions of power now who push this pro-natalist rhetoric, if it wasn't already strong enough with all of the mass pro-natalist policies rolled out across the world by many different governments, I suspect the culture war between antinatalists and pro-natalists is probably going to become heightened. I would not at all be surprised if the conversation in America, and obviously conversations in America also impact other places as well, if that conversation around reproductive freedom moves from being about individual autonomy to collective responsibility to breed for the nation, as it already has been in some other countries. Now, I don't in any way suspect that it'll get as bad as Russia, and if you want to know what's going on Russia, then watch the video I'm popping up on screen now, again linked in the description. I don't think it's going to get as bad over a Trump term, them banning child-free ideologies and this sort of stuff, but I suspect America is going to travel further down the spectrum towards that point. But I suspect that this rhetoric being peddled by core supporters and members of the Trump team is indicative of someone who maybe would be more open to that than not. It's something we need to keep an eye on, it's something we need to be wary of, as this scapegoating of child-free people is maybe going to get worse over time. So moving on to some of Trump's policies. So in Trump's policy document, the only policy I could really find related to reproduction was in chapter 9.4. I'm not going to read this all out. You can pause the video if you want. The main thing is the last sentence where it says, "We will oppose late-term abortion while supporting mothers and policies that advance prenatal care, access to birth control, and IVF fertility treatments." Now, of course, the support for birth control will be welcomed by antinatalists and child-free people alike. Hopefully, this is actually what is implemented, because I have seen in interviews in the past Trump seeming to be open to restricting access to contraception.
Donald Trump today suggesting he's open to restricting birth control if re-elected, saying it's something he's looking at.
Do you support any restrictions on a person's right to contraception?
Well, we're looking at that, and I'm going to have a policy on that very shortly. And I think it's something that you'll find interesting. And it's another issue that's very interesting. But you will find it, I think, very smart. I think it's a smart decision. But we'll be releasing it very soon.
He did later go on to say that his words were misinterpreted, but I'm sure we're all aware of how politicians in democracies tend to drip feed policies in interviews or leaks to see what public reaction is, and then they can roll it back if the public reaction is bad. Who knows if that was the case here, but this comment may suggest that if given the right circumstances and the right people talking in his ear, he may actually be open to this sort of policy. Only time will tell. As is sometimes the case with Trump, you often don't know what he thinks on an issue because he says different things at different times. You can see a bit of his flip-flopping on this issue in this article. Anyway, supporting people with IVF and other fertility treatments is also not surprising, or maybe a little surprising, because there was a controversy earlier in the year around IVF when I believe an Alabama court ruled that fertilized eggs in an IVF treatment that are usually discarded are people, and so actually some of Trump's supporters do condemn IVF, so it is a little controversial for him, but it's not a surprise in the wider scheme of things. Trump even stated in an interview that he would mandate insurance companies to pay for IVF.
Mr. Trump revealing a new policy proposal in an interview with NBC News, pledging that during his second term, the popular and pricey fertility treatment IVF would be free.
So we are paying for that treatment.
All Americans who want it?
For all Americans that get it. All Americans that need it. So we're going to be paying for that treatment, or we're going to be mandating that the insurance company pay.
He also said at a rally in Michigan, "We want more babies," to put it very nicely. And for the same reason, we will also allow new parents to deduct major newborn expenses from their taxes. Again, J.D. Vance, Trump's vice president, said this. Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, Trump's running mate, spoke in a recent separate NBC News interview about his frustration that reproductive rights is a whole suite of pro-family things that Republicans are way better at than Democrats. And the media always focus on abortion. But we've actually done a lot of things to try and promote fertility treatments to people who are struggling with it. So as JD references here, it seems like the pronatalist push is going to be across a wider suite of treatments or technologies or policies, and I guess that's to be expected. I wouldn't be surprised if over the Trump term we do see this suite of pronatalist policies sort of come out as and when. We'll just have to see what happens. Now, I'm sure I've missed out plenty of relevant things when it comes to antinatalism and reproduction and the Trump presidency in America, and there'll be plenty of people much more knowledgeable on the topic than me watching. So please comment down below if I've missed something important or gotten anything wrong. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.